Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Today we're talking about the gait spectrum, or basically all the different gaits that a horse can do, no matter what breed. So a couple things that I want to make clear first is this is not breed dependent. When I say that, it means that any breeds of the gaited horses can do these movements. However, what's super important to know is that I don't show gaited horses. So this is not going to reflect accurately what the judges or what the breed standard or the rule book is going to call the different gaits. It's going to be different than what is going to get you ribbons in the show ring. It's basically going to break down all the different movements that gaited horses can do. The cool thing is you'll be able to identify what a gaited horse is doing. Maybe you wouldn't know the exact name based on the breed, but you're going to know what they're doing because there's only a few different ways they can move their feet in the sense of the patterns that they can move. Now, I'm going to do a more specific video talking about the timing of the footfalls in more detail in the future. This video is going to be long because I have quite a lot of footage to show you. We're going to show the walk, flat walk, running walk, Foxtrot, Trot, broken trot. We're going to show the pace, the stepping pace, and the saddle gait. And we're going to show all of those in some slow motion. So I hope you guys will enjoy this video. This is basically redoing the one I did in March of last year, and going to show a lot of this footage is going to be in my new DVD. Alright, so some people are joining in. The video is working. We're going to go ahead and get started, starting with the gait spectrum. So this is basically showing you the different things that they can do. On the left, you have the pace or lateral movement. Now, any breed can do this. Even camels do this, hence the term camel walk. It's the two legs on one side moving forward and back together. That is the pace. That is lateral gaits, or pacey. To the right, all the way on the right, you have the trot or the diagonal gait. Now, this is what most horses in the world do. The trot, which is, the two legs on the diagonal move forward, front right and back left, and then front left and back right. And this is a diagonal gait. Very common. This is what quarter horses, Arabians, thoroughbreds, Clydesdales, they all do this. In the middle, we have an evenly timed 4-beat gait, which we're not even going to name. Now, I say that. Here we have the saddle rack or the saddle gait, the flat walk, and the running walk. Those are the three gaits in type that you can have that are 4-beat. Now, passos and Icelandics, so like Icelandics do what we call a tolt. Well, it's an even 4-beat gait, but they call it something different, but it's still like the rack or the saddle rack. Same thing with the passos and the Peruvian passos. They do something they would call it differently, but it still is the same movement. And again, in the future, we're going to go into depth on talking about the timing and how many feet are on the ground, but not in this video. Then between the pace and the even 4-beat gait, you have the stepping pace, which is 4 beats, but it's an uneven time. And between the even 4-beat, the saddle rack, flat walk, and running walk, and the trot, the diagonal gait, you have the broken trot and the foxtrot, which again are also 4-beat gaits, but are broken and uneven. The closer you are to the extremes, the pace or the trot, the closer you are to a clop sound, the bouncier it is. The closer you are to that middle, that perfectly smooth, that evenly timed, basically, the evenly timed gait, the saddle rack, saddle gait, flat walk, and running walk, the smoother your horse will be. Okay, so quick hi to Pamela from West Tennessee, and Nancy, Linda, Patrice. Diana says hi. Hi from Linda from Minnesota. Amanda says hi from Canada. Sherry from Whitecourt, Alberta. 2 people from Canada so far. And hi from Angelina from Mississippi. Thanks, guys, for joining. Again, we're going to start looking at the footage in slow motion. So first up, we have the walk. The walk is an evenly timed 4-beat gait when it is correct. So here, this horse is just walking. We're not going to analyze a lot of the overstride, but you can see if you watch the two legs on the one side, you have the back foot lands and then the front, and then it repeats with the back foot landing and then the front. And that's how I tend to watch, is I watch where the back foot is. When the back foot swings forward, that on the same side, the feet tend to make almost a V. The closer it is to an actual V, the more even the timing is. Now, horses can walk and do what we call a camel walk, where they swing both legs forward almost together, and that is not correct, nor is it very comfortable, but it is definitely something that a lot of horses do, which would be the camel walk, which is instead of having a 1, 2, 3, 4 timing, it swings forward and it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not very smooth. Here's another shot of the walk. This horse is trying to go a little bit faster, a little bit higher head, but the big thing is that there's a little bit more of an overstride, but this is still just a walk. More typical of what you see from a walking horse, with that long overstride from the back, but it's still a walk. Now, horses can also have short, choppy walks, and they can have pacey walk with this horse right here. See how those legs swing forward together now? Now this is kind of like the camel walk or the pacey walk. Not very comfortable to ride. That is not our goal at all. Okay, now we're going to go into the pace. Now, when you watch the pace, it's best to watch the 2 legs on the side closest to you. Some people find it easier if you put wraps on the 2 legs so that you can see easier. You'll just have to watch without that. So here is the horse where the legs swing forward and land together or almost exactly together. And this here is the pace. So this is uncomfortable. Whether the horse is going fast or slow, this is usually uncomfortable, and the faster they go, the more uncomfortable it usually is, and it's what we want to avoid. We don't want the pace or the stepping pace, so keep that in mind. The goal is just to get an even 4-beat gait, which we're going to show in just a minute. Actually, before we go into the trot, I want to show you what a saddle rack looks like. So we're going to come back to this. I just want to give people that are joining in a view of what I like to train. Now, I've been getting some flack for not focusing on the flat walk and the running walk for Tennessee walkers. And I've got a couple reasons for that I want to tell you briefly. The first is that many walkers these days have not been bred well. They've been bred to be pacey so that they would show well in the show ring, not so that they would have true, pure Tennessee walking horse gaits like they used to. Because of that, many of these Tennessee walkers do not do an easy flat walk or running walk, or it's very difficult to get them to do it. Not impossible, but difficult. That is the very first reason that I don't train the flat walk and running walk as much as some people would like me to, is many of these horses don't have the same natural ability they used to when the breed was a little bit older, newer, whatever. So in the past, when they were much better bred. Secondly, I don't find the flat walk very smooth, and the running walk is not super energy efficient for the horse. There's a lot of movement from the hind end. It's not as good for going over rough terrain. It can be very smooth to ride in the show ring, and for the purpose of Tennessee walkers, which was plantation horses riding on the flat ground in a comfortable manner for them to check out their plantations and their farms, the flat walk and running walk is much better than the saddle gaits. But if you're going over rockier terrain, the saddle rack or the saddle gait is more efficient, like the Foxtrot, but I find the saddle rack and the saddle gait smoother. So because of those things, I don't focus on training the flat walk and the running walk. There is nothing wrong with training them. And some of the horses have had such a natural tendency, we've been developing that. But otherwise, I usually train the saddle rack and the saddle gait. And you are very welcome to go to somebody else that trains those better than I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. My focus is on the saddle rack and the saddle gait, but there are trainers out there that do a great job training the flat walk and the running walk. And please, there's nothing wrong with combining my stuff and theirs or just going to somebody else. It's really okay. Those are the reasons that I focus on that. So really quickly, I'll show you the saddle rack. This is a Rocky Mountain mare doing a beautiful saddle rack right here. And I'll show you in just a sec in slow motion. Look at the level head and neck, not super high. If you watch the 2 legs on the one side, the back foot will swing forward here, land here, the front foot lands, back foot lands, front foot. And if you count it, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a saddle gait or a saddle rack with the perfectly evenly timed gait there. So let me see if there's any questions here. We have Zach says, smiley face. Emerson says, hi from Norway. Patty says, hi, Ivy. Deb says, hi from Massachusetts. Kimberly says, hi from Arlington, Texas. Wow, I just drove through Arlington. Hi, Kimberly. Charlene says, hi from British Columbia, Canada. Monique says, hi from Cincinnati. Chrissy says, I like to think my recent argument on the endurance gated GRP inspired this topic. Actually, I don't think it did, but I'd love to go back and read that. April says, hi from Michigan. April says, do you find breeding to cause the same issues with other breeds such as Passos? Well, in a lot of the breeds, they've focused more on showing, which has kind of interrupted the pureness of a lot of the gaits because the showring has become more important than the actual gait and calmness of horses. I don't know as much about how they show Passos in terms of how it affects the gaits, but a lot of people can't actually see what the Passos are doing because their feet are moving too fast. And so that can be a real problem seeing the gait in real time. Okay, so we went to the pace, we walk we've seen the pace. Let's look at the trot. So this horse is trotting. And this is just a quick video. It's the 1-2 diagonal gait right there. And it's bouncy. Most of the time you post to it or you learn to sit it, which takes a lot of core strength. And what we're going to, I'll just play that again. This is the trot. You watch the front right and back left, or the back left, or the back right and front left. And they swing forward and land together. It is a 2-beat. So again, if we look at this gait spectrum, on the left you have the pace or the lateral. All the way on the right you have the trot or the diagonal. And we're looking for an evenly timed gait. Now let's take a look at the stepping pace. So if you look on this here, the pace is all the way on the left, and then between the pace and our smooth gait, we have the stepping pace. So here you go. So the legs are swinging forward together on the one side. So watch the two left legs, but the back foot lands just before the front. See that? Just before the front it lands. That makes it a stepping pace. Now, this is one of the most tricky gaits that there is because so many people's horses do this, and they've been told that the horse is gaiting. You will see many, many sale videos online that they say the horse is doing a smooth gait when in fact the horse is just doing a stepping pace. Sorry to break it to you, most of them are doing this. I get emails that sound like this. Hi, my horse is smooth when he's doing a slow gait, but when he speeds up, he's pacing. And I will bet you money that instead of doing an even gait, that horse is doing a stepping pace. And when they speed up, it's the pace which looks like this. It's more, a little bit more up and not comfortable. So this is a stepping pace. This is not what we want either. Now, a lot of people say, but Ivy, this feels fairly smooth. Can't I keep it? And I say, well, maybe, but see how the horse's head is up in this video? He's pushing down the base of his neck. This means that he's hollowing his back, which is not good for his long-term health. So unless your horse has a very low head and is relaxed, you really don't want the stepping pace either. It is never the goal. All right, here we go. Janet says hi from Southwest Wisconsin. Jana says the saddle rack, flat walk, and running walk are all an even 4-beat gait. What's the difference? Well, we are going to get to that, so stay tuned, Jana. We're going to talk about the flat walk, running walk, and the saddle gait. Darren says hello from Tennessee. You are correct about Tennessee walkers. Well, I try to be correct, but I am wrong a lot of the time. Deborah says hi from North Pole, Alaska. Hey, Deborah, I was going to try to do a clinic up in North Pole, Alaska. Maybe next year. Kelly says howdy from Lexington, Kentucky. Kimberly says, so glad you're in our neck of the woods. I was at the Canton Clinic last year. Cool. Kelsey says, hi, Ivy. I have a really tough time distinguishing between the stepping pace and the saddle rack. Any tips? Well, we're going to get to that. The biggest way you can tell the difference is usually the sound. It sounds like pucka, 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 pucka when it's smooth. And so a lot of times with horses that are pacing, there'll be a slight bounce. Not always distinguishable by the rider. The sound is the most obvious way. If there's a stepping pace, you can sometimes see the head go side to side. And anytime the head goes side to side, you have more of a pace, and it's not a good thing. Renee says, what is the best way to differentiate the gaits while you're riding? Well, actually, I'm going to share a post with you where I already talk about this, telling the difference when riding. So when I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the link to that. Really quickly, just in case anybody cares, I am going to show, I have this link here is to join my private training group. You do not have to join. It just helps support me to make these videos, but don't feel like you have to. Okay, so let's get into more of the things that we have lots of questions about. So here again is the saddle rack. Usually you don't see much of a head nod with the saddle rack. It doesn't move a lot. Sometimes there is some, but here's the saddle rack. And it sounds like pucka, 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 pucka. Now watch the back leg. You won't see a huge overstride. You know, the horse is stepping under herself, but she's not really striding way underneath her like we're used to seeing with the Tennessee walkers. That's normal. Same thing with these horses here are doing a saddle rack. I've got a few examples. Notice the shorter little steps there. Still a saddle rack. You got a little bit of a tail bob. You don't have the head going up and down, except for as she's putting her head down when we're doing the training. But it's not an up and down movement like the flat walk and the running walk. This is where a lot of people get confused. And I'm going to show you in just a sec the flat walk and running walk. The flat walk and the running walk absolutely must have a head nod, okay? This is, I've been argued on this, and I'm willing to be corrected, but when you're talking about a true flat walk and running walk, you need to have a head nod. Not just a head nod. You also need the hind end to really step under. So this is a saddle rack, and if there was a head nod, it still wouldn't be a flat walk or running walk because there isn't that huge engagement from the hind end. The saddle rack and the saddle gait, we don't expect to see that kind of engagement. We're looking for that pucka pucka pucka, those smaller, shorter steps, which makes it much more ideal for going over rougher terrain because they don't have to slide that hind end way under them. They're a little bit more balanced and a little bit more upright. Again, Tennessee Walkers had a very specific purpose, and that was to be able to ride like on the plantations and have a very comfortable ride, not just to have a smooth gait over like rough terrain. That's why we have the Rocky Mountain and Kentucky Mountain horses and the Foxtrotters. They did a much better job going over that rough terrain. Now, let's go ahead and look at the flat walk and the running walk. This is pre-recorded, so I'm not going to be answering questions for about the 10 minutes how long this video is, but I'll go ahead and ask any questions and I will answer them afterwards. And then after that, we're going to talk about the Foxtrot. Patty says pace feels more side-to-side movement as well. Well, Patty, it can. Not always, but sometimes it does. You're absolutely correct. But not always. So, also, let's see. Darlene says hi from Pennsylvania. Jennifer says, do you use a chin strap with a rocking S bit? No, you don't. No chin strap. Please don't use one with that. All right, hang on. And somebody replying to, okay. Okay, so anyway, there you go. We'll go ahead and get started. Take a look at this video on the flat walk and the running walk.
The flat walk and running walk are some of the most misunderstood gaits out there. This is a flat walk. You'll see the head goes up and down, that head nod that is typical of walkers, but any gaited horse can do it, including foxtrotters, Rocky Mountains, Kentucky Mountains, spotted saddle horses, McCurdy plantation horses. You'll also notice that you have a pretty big overstride from the hind end, where compared to the foxtrot, the hind legs take relatively shorter steps. For it to be a flat walk or running walk, you absolutely must have the head nod. That is a requirement. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the flat walk does not have to have a high head. They can do a flat walk with a lower head. A lot of people say, oh, the horses have to have that high head to do a flat walk or to actually gait, and that is incorrect. For it to be a good, correct flat walk, it should still have a 4-beat gait. If you watch the legs, you'll see that they swing forward almost together, but they land, and if we were to count the time, it should be an even 4-beat gait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just slightly lateral, which is normal for a flat walk. Ideally, the head would be just a little bit lower, and the flat walk would just be a little bit square, or a little bit more diagonal, or perfectly even. The running walk, on the other hand, has a good deal more impulsion, and not only speed, but also reach from the hind legs. We'd like to see the horse lifting the back with every other stride. As the head goes down, the back should be lifting, and as the head comes up, it should be basically hollowing the back just slightly. The more round, the better. And the lower head is usually better for the horse. The flat walk also has a lot of movement. If you watch my seat, I am moving around in the saddle a lot. That is normal of the flat walk. When your horse hits the running walk, there will still be a head nod, and there'll still be an even bigger stride from the hind end, but the gait will smooth out and feel more comfortable than the flat walk. Personally, I don't train the flat walk and the running walk except in cases like this horse where he has such a natural ability to do it. But I find the saddle rack to generally be smoother than the flat walk, and so I train that first. Many Tennessee walkers don't have a really good ability to do a natural flat walk. Same horse, see the head going up and down, that hind end is really reaching through. The little bit lower head is good. He gets a more evenly timed gait when the head's a little bit lower. So that's what I'm actually working on, is trying to get him to drop his head a little bit. You must see a head nod for it to be an actual flat walk or running walk. If there's no head nod, you're looking at a pace or the Foxtrot. Or so basically, if there's no head nod, you're looking at a pace or the rack or the saddle gait. That hind leg is stepping under. Get kind of a bigger stride. That head is going up and down. Again, it can be different levels of up and down. It doesn't have to be a huge stride. You are welcome to train the flat walk and the running walk and stop and praise anytime you get that head nod. With this horse, I was also working on getting the head down a little bit. This is still a flat walk, still trying to encourage some speed, but what would happen is I would go faster and then his head would come up and stop bobbing, and that would tell me that he was going into a pace. So here we have, this is a shot of actually the running walk here. See that speed change, that hind end really starting to reach forward and through? That is the running walk, where we have a change in speed, a little bit more round, a little bit more reach from that hind end. Where, like in this case, if it was a foxtrot, it would be not as much reach from the hind end. There would still be a head nod, but the legs would not track as far forward under. And so this makes this a running walk, and it definitely is smoother. And he did really well, and then right here he started to put his head up and get just a little bit pacey, and so I was encouraging him to drop his head. Or her in this case. But with this horse, they were very quick to put the head up and not so quick to put it down. Changing the bit might have helped. I ended up not doing that on this first hour, which is where a lot of this footage is from. This horse here is doing the flat walk. He's not able to hold it as long, but he's also able to put his head down. When he puts his head up too much, you can see that he does tend to get pacey. But I wanted to give you another example to look at. Notice the head nod up and down, and the overstride from the hind end. The lower he puts his head, the more evenly timed his gait tends to be. I'm stopping and praising for those few steps because he was very pacey. Here's an example where we're working to get the flat walk and working to get head down. So here I'm asking for head down, and then I'll release. And just watch for that head nod. Right now he's a little bit pacey, and you can tell because the head nod gets shorter and shorter. I know this is going to be a little bit harder for you guys to see, but I want you to start to see when he has a longer stride. That's when he's actually doing the flat walk. And I want to show it to you in regular speed and then a little bit in slow motion so you can start to look for that, like the head nod. And notice that when his head's high is when he tends to be more pacey and keep his head more still. As he lowers his head, he's able to do a better flat walk. So the high head, even if you're going for your typical walking horse gaits, the high head usually hinders it. You want them to round their back and use their hind end. And to do that, we want the head a little bit lower. Again, notice with this horse, his ears start to flop when he hits a nice flat walk. But when he does just the pace, they stay stiff. Watch this here. As he puts his head down, you're going to see that hind leg step under way farther. And that as the head comes up, he'll tend to lose it and get more pacey. And that is pretty typical, which is a really big reason why we want to work so hard to get head down. Right there, his head come up and he got stiff. So here, same thing. His head's up high. See, he throws his head up and swings those legs forward. When he drops his head, that's when he's actually able to do the flat walk. And so just keep that in mind, that even if you're going to be training the flat walk and running walk, you really, really do want to work at getting that head lower. Again, not all the way down to the ground, but you want that head nod with the lower head so that the hind end can work well and they can round their back and they can use their whole body to get a good solid gait. I like this example because he is starting to drop his head, but his gait changes. The higher his head is, the more lateral or pacey he goes. And in just a minute, you're going to see him put his head a lot lower, and it just looks so much prettier. He still is doing a beautiful flat walk, but it's much more rounder. He has his hind legs under him. that head down is way more comfortable. And I stop and praise right there because he put it down. And head down was what we were working on, and it was difficult for him. Here it is in slow motion. Look at that beautiful low head. The base of the neck is lifted. Got a really big stride from the hind end. It's beautiful. In this clip, again, you notice the head comes down, the ears start to flop. He actually is just about right to a running walk. I slowed him down because his head was starting to come up. Here in slow motion, you can see that ears flopping. You see that hind leg stepping under really well. Beautiful, really starting to get that speed, starting to smooth out a little bit as he's just about to the running walk. It's beautiful. That's the kind of training we need to do. That's why that head down is so key to getting even a good flat walk and running walk. Another clip, not as low, but really starting to move out. That is so perfect. And here you can see again in slow motion as he really starts to reach under the hind end. Again, you notice the head bob, but he's also starting to lift the base of his neck, lift his back as he's doing this, and that is what a good flat walk and moving to a good running walk should look like. Here's two short examples of that head down and moving into a beautiful flat walk. Another slightly longer one, not a great angle because he's moving away, but I want you to notice how low the head is, and that head nod is there. This horse is just showing you the really slow motion flat walk. It's not a running walk. It's too slow, and while there is good overstride from the hind end, there's also a lot of movement from the rider in the saddle. Again, this is just a different horse to give you a different perspective. The hind end really steps very far forward, and that head is going up and down, and it's still a walk. This next horse belongs to a friend of mine, Scott McGregor, as he's showing her. And she's doing a flat walk right now. It's just slightly lateral, but beautiful head nod there. And then he's going to transition across the diagonal into a running walk. Notice a big speed change, and that hind end is still very much engaged. And the rider looks to be a little bit smoother. We're going to watch it in slow motion, but it's an abrupt change, or it's a really noticeable change. Here he's going to slow back down to the flat walk, and you'll see again a speed difference as he changes to the flat walk and doesn't continue on in the running walk. Here you can see the flat walk change into the running walk. There's an increase in speed, there's more power from the hind end, there's a bigger push and a bigger overstride from the hind end while still maintaining that head nod. This is the running walk right here. A lot of people tell me, oh, my horse is doing a running walk, but nobody ever sends me a video of this. This is what the running walk should look like.
So that was the flat walk and the running walk. All right, I'm going to answer these questions quickly, then move on to the Foxtrot. Monique says, can a Tennessee walking horse do a running walk and be able to do a saddle rack as well? Yes, they absolutely can. Good question. Kelly, so what's the difference between gaiting and racking? Well, there is no difference. A rack is a gait. Racking, when you say racking, usually people think of speed racking, and that is debatable whether that is actually good for horses or not. So I rarely talk about training just the rack or the speed rack. We're usually talking about the saddle gait or the saddle rack, which is the same thing as gaiting. But so is a stepping pace, so is a foxtrot. Those are all different kinds of gaiting. Kelsey says, can you get a horse gaiting riding bareback or the saddle recommended? You absolutely can train bareback. However, I never recommend long rides bareback because of how much your seat will push on certain muscles and not give the horse any relief or spread the weight out at all. Okay, so we're going to move on to the foxtrot. And so we saw the flat walk and the running walk, which a lot of people were asking about. Here's some foxtrot. Now here you can see the head nod, but there's no overstride from the hind end.
And she's going to trot. All right, there you go. Lean back. There you go.
Right there, and then moves back into a foxtrot when the head nod. See that? Up, that little up and down, but very close to an even gait. That's a really, really lovely little foxtrot. I love this mare. She was so awesome. And then she moved into a trot right there. And then she corrected it. It's the same thing. Little tiny head nod. Bit of a foxtrot. We were working to get her more relaxed, but she did have a super, super natural gait. Very, very good. Very smooth and comfortable to ride, but it's very close to an even 4-beat gait. There's one foxtrotter. Let's take a look at this one as well. So, nice little head bob, not super prominent. And it's very smooth because it's very close to an even gait. Want to not let him get trotty there. You watch in slow motion here in just a sec. Again, notice the back legs. See how they're not stepping way far under? If it was a saddle rack, so we've got 3 gaits that have a head nod. You have the flat walk, running walk, and the foxtrot. And one big way you can tell a difference is the foxtrot, those legs do not step that far under. It's a foxtrot because it's diagonal and there's not a huge reach from the hind end. The flat walk and the running walk must have that reach from the hind end. In footfall pattern, it's fairly similar, but the foxtrot needs to be slightly diagonal, not perfectly even, and the flat walk and the running walk need to be just barely toward the pace or lateral, but so close to even it sounds like pucka pucka. But to be technically correct, the flat walk and running walk need to be lateral, and the foxtrot needs to be diagonal. Rip says, thanks for sharing this. Oh, somebody else. You're welcome. Whoever. You're welcome for sharing it. Okay. When the video is done, I'm going to put a link in the description that talks about how you can train head down and also how you can identify the gaits from the saddle. With the foxtrot, flat walk, and running walk, look for that head nod, okay? And then the biggest advice I can give you is to video yourself riding and then take a look. Compare it to these slow motion videos. And I see we've got quite a few people watching today. The very best thing you guys can do to support me is to share this video because a lot of people don't know what the gaits are. So many people have videos of horses that are doing the stepping pace and they say they're doing a smooth gait. A lot of people have horses that they say they're doing a running walk and they're not because they don't know what a running walk is. And so I wanted to show it in this video. And I'm also looking for footage of anybody whose horse does a running walk. I would love to be able to use it in my either upcoming DVD or future videos. And if anybody has videos of their horse doing a perfect gait, horse or mule, I'm not picky, I would love to have them and make a montage of people whose horses are gaiting correctly or very, very close to correct because I'd love to be able to show that either from the saddle or from the side and be able to make a montage of that. So if you're interested, go ahead and comment below and I'll provide a link that people can share those to. So let me know if you guys have any questions before we sign off. I know this is a little bit longer video, but I hope this helps people. Again, we talked about the walk, which is an even 4-beat gait, which can look different. It can not be even. It can be more like a pacey walk. We have the pace where the 2 legs on the one side move forward and land at the same time. This is the pace, not good. This is the trot, which is a diagonal gait. And again, we're going to refer back to the gait spectrum where you have the left, you've got the lateral and pacey movements. On the right, you've got the trot and the diagonal movements. In the middle, you've got your even gaits, which is the saddle rack, flat walk, and running walk. But again, these are not supposed to be breed specific. This is just how horses can move, not how you win in the show ring, because I don't show gaited horses. That's not what I'm focused on. And if that bothers you, go watch somebody else. Or if this helps you, that's fine too. This is the saddle rack, which is an even 4-beat gait. There's not really a head nod. There's not really an overstride from the hind end. Same thing with these horses here. Even 4-beat gait, short little steps. And then, you've got the flat walk
and running walk. Also notice that you have a
the head bob, and then you
walk.
have the running walk,
There's an increase
which
in speed.
is a much
There's
more animated, much more forward movement.
There's a bigger push,
and then you have the foxtrot. So those are the basic gaits that a horse can do if they're gaited, and most gaited horses can do all of these. Not necessarily the flat walk and the running walk, they need to be built a certain way, but after that, most gaited horses can do the pace, trot, walk, stepping pace, broken trot, foxtrot, and saddle gait. And whether they can do the flat walk and the running walk depends a lot on genetics. Janet says, thank you. You guys are so welcome. I'm going to stay on for just another couple minutes to see if there's any questions. While I'm waiting for more questions, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to be doing next for book reviews. So this week, I will be doing on Thursday the book Collection or Contortion by Dr. Gert Huishman. And it's talking about a lot about the horse's back and bend. And it doesn't deal specifically with dressage, though it talks a lot about it. But I'm coming this as a focus for how you get your horse balanced, what that looks like, and what it doesn't look like. And I'm not basing this on the show ring. I'm basing this on what's correct for the horse. And gaited horses are just other horses, and they still have to have the same principles of balance and lifting their back. And it talks about actually how they shouldn't lift their backs too much. So that'll be this week. And then after that, this book, which I have not read yet, is called Understanding the Horse's Back by Sarah Weish. I don't know. Anyway, Understanding the Horse's Back, which is probably going to be pretty technical, but I really want to be a little bit more knowledgeable in this and be able to explain why it's important for you guys to have the horses to drop their heads, lift their shoulders and their withers, and give you guys an example. So it'll be this book. And then this last one, I'll be hopefully able to start doing some of these exercises with my own horses for the time I get to this. It's called Activate Your Horse's Core by Narelle C. Stubbs and Hillary M. Clayton. Unmounted exercises for dynamic mobility, strength, and balance. So this one is on the ground stuff. So this would be great for the winter because these are stretches that you can do with your horse, neck extension, all these different things. So I'm going to review this, hopefully do some of these exercises with my own horses, and review this for you. This one also includes the DVD. So if that interests people, I'll be watching that or reviewing that as well. So that'll be hopefully then over the next 3 weeks. Hopefully, if I have time, I'll be reviewing those videos for you, or those books and the DVD for you as well, one at a time. So this week is just the first one. And okay, Monique says, thanks. See you in May in Midland. Yep. Shanna says, this is fantastic. Thank you for all the video examples. You're very welcome. I hope it helps. And Kimberly says, interested in sharing the video. Well, you can just, as soon as the live video, as soon as you can share it right now or when it's done. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's so fun interacting with everybody. We had people from Canada, Alaska, Norway. I'm sure we had many more people tuning in that didn't chime in and say anything. But I love the interaction of doing this live. Take a look, tune in Thursday for the book review, and let me know if you have any other book suggestions, and if you have any footage of your horse gaiting well. I'd love to be able to use some of that. So thanks, guys. Enjoy the weather, whether it's cold or not. Remember, warm weather is coming. Spring is coming. Take care, and you got this.